this hour again with this Fox News alert. Robert Mueller's investigation is over. His report has been turned over to the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr. The one-word headline in the New York Post this morning, finally.
Yeah, big headline on the front page of the New York Post this morning. The New York Times also covering this. We have learned overnight and yesterday, almost immediately after the report was announced as finished, that the special counsel will not be recommending any further indictments, which means President Trump and his associates at the campaign, his family members, will not be indicted by the special counsel, as many people have predicted or said would absolutely happen.
Falsely predicted, wrongly predicted, again and again. Adam Schiff, a leading Democrat, this is not a pundit, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee 2 years ago said flatly he had seen evidence that there was collusion with Russia. That turns out to be false.
Speaking of 2 years ago, in case you're doing the math at home, the total amount of time of this special counsel investigation, 675 days. Total cost to you, the taxpayer, over $25 million. Total number of indictments, 37. Now, take this. 26 of those were Russian nationals who will never see justice. Total indictments about collusion, 0. We've got the cover this morning of the failing New York Times. I see pictures on here of all the folks involved. Some guy named Richard Pineto, Alex Vanderwan, George Papadopoulos, and then I see this empty circle down here. Oh, there's no picture of Trump in there, because he's not indicted at all. Yet this has been, listen, if you're frustrated, it's because I'm frustrated. This has been 2 years of our lives.
Well,
2 years of our lives, of our country's lives, stolen.
And 2 years
based on an investigation based on crap. And crap that we've heard from every guest. And so I'm happy today that it's over, and we'll find out what we learned from the Attorney General.
And 2 years of narratives, right?
Correct.
That we've heard from the media, from Democrats on Capitol Hill. We've gone from there's collusion to obstruction of justice to now, Democrats saying they may want to haul Robert Mueller up in front of Congress to testify about what is in the report.
If necessary, we will call Bob Mueller or others before our committee.
Mueller has to come before Congress and tell us its veracity as far as what
Can you make that happen?
Yeah, we're going to subpoena him.
The watchword is transparency.
And the rest of the House and the Senate accept what it says?
I'm not going to draw any conclusions until we see not only the whole report, but the underlying findings and documentation.
This is the end of the beginning. A number of other entities will be looking at other aspects of the Trump organizations. There's more to come.
Some Democrats you see there are being honest and transparent about the fact that they're not going to turn the page. This is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. So what she's really saying there, Senator Hirono, is that they're going to keep investing in all kinds of things. Look at these headlines. Bloomberg, Trump circle in legal peril despite end of Mueller probe. The New York Times, as Mueller report lands, prosecutorial focus moves now to New York.
Well, and if you look, this is not, the Mueller report is not the only investigation that we've seen that has come to the conclusion, at least with no indictments available. We saw the Senate Intelligence Committee in February also come to the same conclusion that there was no collusion at all between the Trump campaign and the Russians. So there's a consistency now on behalf of the argument that the president and the White House and the campaign have been making, which is there was no collusion. We were not working with Russians to steal an election, as Democrats have been saying. And again, now we are here with Democrats saying we're going to move the goalposts, even though Mueller's saying there's no more indictments, and try and look for some more allegations of wrongdoing in the Southern District of New York.
Ben Shapiro said this very well last night. He was talking about how the ball keeps moving, and it's going to keep on moving. Watch.
Astonishing to watch as the Democrats turn their lonely eyes from Robert Mueller, who was supposed to be the deus ex machina who stopped President Trump, to the Southern District of New York. They're doing that in real time. They're claiming that maybe, just maybe, once the entire report is released, then it will tell us something different from the fact that there are no indictments, as we now know. And it will be amazing to watch them shift the goalposts. I'm seeing the media already suggesting that the big story is that President Trump is going to pounce. Whenever Republicans are exonerated of something, then it becomes a story about Republicans pouncing. It's never about media malfeasance for 2 years, suggesting beyond the evidence at hand that President Trump was responsible for deep, dark collusion with Russia that ended with Hillary Clinton losing the election.
He makes an important point, that it's always put the president on defense, that now he's pouncing somehow on something, or maybe he's being cleared. I stress maybe, and they don't say that. I would also note what he said. He said it started with collusion. They couldn't prove that. Then they say, wait, it's obstruction. And then he went on to say, Now it's cover up, meaning
Right.
put out the report from William Barr. Democrats are now all saying on the campaign trail. Otherwise, it's a cover up. So what Ben Shapiro was saying is it's a cover up before a cover up has happened. So they keep shifting it.
And they
Conspiracy,
always,
obstruction, cover up.
totally right. And they always put him on the defense. So while Ben was talking, I corrected the headline of the New York Times. It's no longer Mueller submits Trump inquiry findings. It's Trump vindicated. If they actually did their job, or if they actually reported the way they report on the left. No, if they reported the way they report on the left, this is how they would report this headline.
Yeah,
This is
Pete
what they
Hegseth
did.
is now the editor of the New York Times.
You know what? Let me know if I can put my application in for that job. But that's the frustration of people watching this. The benefit of the doubt is always given to Robert S. Mueller III. By the way, I'd like to be referred to as Peter B. Hegseth I from now on if I'm ever in the New York Times. So they give him this fancy. They build him up. And then they dismiss his investigation, to your point, and they say this is the beginning, the end of the beginning, or we got to continue doing hearings. This is
never enough. It'll never be enough.
Still hasn't figured out what they overdid in the election against Trump. They still haven't learned it.
That's what's happened. What happened?
Stuck on stupid. Democrats are stuck on stupid. They're done. Democrats are done.
Leadership yesterday saying exactly that. He said, quote, I am reviewing the report and anticipate that I may be in a position to advise you of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend. I intend to consult with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and Special Counsel Mueller to determine what other information from the report can be released to Congress and the public consistent with the law. I remain committed to as much transparency as possible. And as you'll remember, Bill Barr is new to the job as the Attorney General for President Trump. He was the Attorney General in the 90s. This is what he told Congress during his confirmation hearings about making the Mueller report public.
It's very important that the public and Congress be informed of the results of the special counsel's work. My goal will be to provide as much transparency as I can consistent with the law. I can assure you that where judgments are to be made, I will make those judgments based solely on the law.
It's important, consistent with the law. You're going to hear Democrats continue to say and make it a political issue. We want to see the report. We want to see the whole report. Nothing but the truth.
Let's just see. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to switch over to the Democrat channel. Well, they're all the other channels are Democrat channels, but let's just check this out.
And there are a few things that deserve focused and ongoing investigation. We should not overdo it. We have to remember that there's a 2020 election coming up, Michael, and the question the average American is going to ask is not about any of these investigations. They're going to ask, what would you do, Democratic Party, that would make a difference in my life, that would help my family, my kids, my immediate community deal with opioids, deal with health care, get a better job. Those are the things that I hear in Delaware on the minds of the average American. I'm not saying we should abandon our responsibility of oversight and investigations, but we need to be focused.
Final question, you referenced ISIS. Are you willing to give the president credit for the defeat of ISIS, the caliphate in Syria?
Absolutely. I'm willing to give credit to our armed forces who have fought bravely alongside our Syrian partners, Kurds and Arabs in the Syria Democratic Forces. This was begun by
call scheduled for 3 o'clock. It's happening this afternoon. Our breaking news continues now with Smerconish.
I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. By now you know that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian meddling in the 2016 election has been delivered to Attorney General Bill Barr. Reports that there will be no further indictments suggest that the president's often repeated claim of no collusion will soon be validated, and presumably that there will be no case made for obstruction of justice, or at least not now. No wonder then that the president was said to be celebrating quietly last night at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Democrats are now channeling their energy toward demanding release of the full report and its supporting evidence. Here's something about which we should all be in agreement. Robert Mueller is deserving of our gratitude. The former director of the FBI has dedicated most of his professional life to government service. He wore the nation's uniform in Vietnam, where he earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, and did it again, figuratively, over the span of the last 2 years, keeping his head down and his mouth shut while doing his job and taking never-ending fire from those who didn't want him to finish his task. That no one knew the outcome up until the time he delivered the report is a tribute to Mueller and to his staff. There's no evidence that Mueller leaked, ever, none. Mueller himself has been so silent that Robert De Niro wasn't sure how to imitate his voice on SNL. That he presumably didn't construct a case for conspiracy or collusion or obstruction doesn't mean that his efforts were in vain or that they weren't fruitful. First, by investigating the president and reaching conclusions, he did us all a favor. He's been the sunshine that will be a source of disinfectant for years to come. Of course, that Mueller recommends no indictments doesn't mean that he didn't find the president committed crimes. Remember that he's operating on the disputed premise that the president can't be indicted. But more importantly, we would have no idea as to the mechanics and depth of the Russian hacking and meddling in our election without his investigation. 37 people and entities were charged as a result of the Mueller probe. 7 guilty pleas, 1 conviction at trial. About 2/3 of them are Russians charged with hacking and meddling in the 2016 election. Some of those entangled in the investigation
Right.
are individuals
2/3 of them they can't even get.
charged with lying and other non-conspiracy
Big show.
offenses. But that's all stunning.
We got some
It would have
Russians.
been earth-shattering if announced all at once. Last month, Philip Bump from the Washington Post made this brilliant observation. He wrote, quote, President Trump has benefited enormously from the frog in hot water nature of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into his campaign and possible overlap with Russian efforts to influence the 2016 election. Imagine if, instead of Mueller releasing new public indictments as he went along, leveraging criminal charges to obtain more information from the targets of his probe, he instead had kept his information private. Imagine if he and his lawyers had been working in quiet for 20 months, submitting expenses to the Department of Justice and suffering the president's tweeted ferocity. And then, after all of that, they suddenly produced a dozen indictments and plea deals running into the hundreds of pages detailing former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort's illegal and questionable financial dealings, those of his deputy Rick Gates, full details of Russia's alleged efforts to influence social media and to steal electronic information from Democratic targets, and detailed a half dozen people who admitted to lying to federal investigators. Imagine if that had landed with a thud on the Attorney General's desk. Well, Bump is right, of course, that in the end there was no case constructed against Donald Trump for conspiracy.
Let's see what Mad Cow has to say.
But let it not mask that our nation was the victim of a hostile effort by a world power to disrupt that which we hold most sacred, free and fair elections.
See.
That happened.
Is this last night? Yeah, that's
aided
last
and
night.
abetted by members of the Trump campaign.
This big day for making time to come on by here. That